So I want to touch on a topic that usually isn't addressed, right? Which is the topic of faked orgasms, right? And I'm gonna touch on this both from a male and a female perspective, right? And or at least faking pleasure. There are a variety of reasons that this type of thing can be done. But the first thing I want to bring up is this. Something you need to understand is this. Sometimes, if you're prematurely integrated and you're in a relationship, right? Or you're already causing a woman to value you for things outside of sex, she knows that the ego validation that you want from having sex with her, if you want to see yourself as dominant and masculine, when that's not really the role that you're taking in that relationship, is that you want to feel like she's also having pleasure so that you can be in a situation where you're comfortable being in that relationship and continuing to give her that emotional validation or that financial compensation or that social validation of a relationship. So you have to understand the reasons why a woman would be faking orgasms. And you have to mitigate those things for yourself. And you can't control what somebody else does. Some people are just going to lie, right? Some people are just going to lie. But another thing to understand is typically a woman's desire to fake an orgasm from that perspective is to give a false symbol of submissiveness, right? That's something that can happen when a woman takes a masculine submissive position with you, because a woman, her submissiveness is going to be limited by her masculine energy, right? Because remember, feminine energy is what lubricates, right? That's what makes something willing to stretch. She can give control to you and allow you to penetrate her, but that doesn't mean that she's going to be feminine enough to be lubricated for your dominant masculine energy, nor for her to be emotional enough to give herself over in that moment, nor to be malleable enough, right? So there are going to be different factors that take place here, right? And what I mean by feminine enough is that when it comes to vaginal orgasm from penetration, it can often be a scary thing for a woman, because in that moment she's giving up control, right? It's not the same as a woman having orgasms from giving her head or clitoral stimulation, because there's a certain level of control there. It's not as intrusive. Plus, most women have spent most of their lives masturbating through giving themselves clitoral stimulation. Most women don't masturbate through giving themselves penetrative, masturbation. Some do, but most don't. And when you look at it this way, that's something that kind of helps you understand that, when it comes to that topic of a woman having her first vaginal orgasm from penetration, it's often a matter of, it'll often happen during sex. Now, there are some women who let that happen, or they learn a way to make that happen through masturbation, but oftentimes them being in control of the strokes, them being in control of what's going on, makes it very difficult for a lot of women to work themselves there mentally. Get what I'm saying? It's one of those things to where when a woman gives herself over to that pleasure, when somebody else is being the actor, right? When someone else is being the penetrator, it makes it a lot easier for a woman to have. It's just difficult if she's having those experiences, or she's trying to have sex and she's having sex with a man who she doesn't see as being a man who has a capacity to do that for her. And this is something that often happens with premature integration. Like, part of the reason of starting with the biology first approach is from the perspective of establishing that you have adequate amount of sexual compatibility before you become emotionally invested and before you become financially invested. Now, what this does is it gives, it takes away a woman's ability to be dealing with you for something other than sex at the very beginning, right? It takes away her ability to do that, right? So if you're dealing with her from a dominant masculine perspective, then it's going to be one of those things to where if she's not getting, the validation even of you trying to please her on a certain level, or of her pleasing you, then she's kind of going to be forced into a position to where either she's going to be fucking with you for her own pleasure, or she's going to get tired of fucking with you and leave you alone, unless there's a bunch of other things that you're providing to the table that make her want to deal with you. And if she gets emotionally invested in you too soon, then something that may happen is a woman may be willing to fake orgasms, because either she's afraid of losing control, or she doesn't see you as having the capacity to do it, or she may be in a situation where she's never done it and she doesn't think she can. Maybe she's been socially programmed into thinking that that's not natural, and she doesn't really know her body well enough to communicate that, and that makes her feel insecure that she doesn't know her body well enough to do that. And if you're putting a lot of pressure on a woman to do that, it can be a difficult position for her. But another thing you might understand is this, and this is touching on another side. Oftentimes for a woman, if she's having sex with you and you're fucking her too long and you're taking too long and she's not getting the validation of you orgasming when you're having sex with her, she may fake moan, she may fake the pleasure so that she can put herself or put you into a mindset where you feel like you've done enough to earn getting your own pleasure. And sometimes that is a trick that a woman uses to make a man orgasm faster so she can get the sex over with, right? So she can get that shit over with. Understand what I'm saying? Now, these are different perspectives of where that comes from. Now, what you got to understand as a man is this. You know, if you're prematurely integrated with a woman, right, you're all emotionally invested, you're financially invested, you're socially invested, and you're now starting to judge your sexual compatibility off of her ability to have vaginal orgasm from penetration, then it's going to put her in a position to where she's going to feel like having you, she's in jeopardy of losing you if she's truly honest with you. So she has to be dishonest with you about how much she enjoys you, how much pleasure she's experiencing, so that she can keep you around instead of creating a plan so that she can actually get there. You understand what I'm saying? Now, men can also do this. Like in the same way that a woman may fake an orgasm so that a man can hurry up and come. I know there is this one woman that I dealt with to where she had somewhat of a dominant sexual ego herself. So she mostly would start getting close after I started getting close. For a long time, we dealt with each other for a long time. And she wouldn't start getting close, so she felt like I was getting close. Or she would start getting close, and then she would start getting scared and start being afraid of losing control. So she finally got past that point of being afraid of losing control in that moment. But it also got to the point where she would only get close when she felt like I was getting close. So it kind of created this catch-22. It created this catch-22 that made it like take years for her to have her first vaginal orgasm with me. Or really her first one ever, because she didn't even masturbate through putting anything in her vagina. She didn't even like tampons. She didn't put her fingers in there. I think she had just had a bad experience with a guy fingering her one day years ago, and that just kind of made it so that the only thing she really liked in there was the dick. So what happened in that instance was one night was having sex. I finally caught that right angle, right? You know, found whatever angle my dick was at, made sure I was hitting on that spot the right way. And you got to play around with this stuff sometimes. But I got to an angle where I was hitting on that A spot real good. And then I act like I was closer than I was, sooner than I was. You know, I was still going to come. But instead of it being 10, 15 seconds after I said I'm about to nut, I said I was, getting close, and it was really about 2 minutes left. And that 2 minutes made it so that at the end of that 2 minutes, we ended up coming at like the same time. And that was pretty dope. Another thing that can help with this, if you're a man in that particular type of situation, is you can develop your ability to have multiple orgasms as a man. I know this year, I have certain sexual goals that I put in mind, and I give a lot of information on here. But the reason I do that is because guys got to see that this shit's real. I set certain goals. I know some years back I set some goals of being able to shoot. Then I've reached my goals, and I'm not being facetious. Niggas will probably think I'm lying. My record is about 6.5 feet from me, how far I can shoot. I remember that shit used to dribble down. I used to think that shit was pathetic. And the funny thing, niggas gonna think this is so crazy. How that happened, I prayed about it one day and I kind of just manifested it. Some niggas think manifesting ain't real, but it's a mental thing that you can do sometimes. And sometimes when you can do that with smaller sexual things, it can give you the confidence that you can make that happen with things that are much more important than that. But sometimes just starting that on a smaller level with things associated with your body can help with that. But another goal I had was to be able to have multiple orgasms as a man. So that's a goal I reached by the end of the year. And that was a goal I set at the beginning of the year, maybe around March-ish. February, March, that's kind of where I set that goal. March or April. But I reached it. But the thing to understand about that is if a woman has an ego to where she doesn't start getting close till she feels like you're close, well, one, that means that she's not fully aroused before you went in there. So that's something else to think about. But if she is, then it's probably not going to take as long. But if a woman doesn't get close until she feels like you're close, then she could be doing it. You could be fucking her for hours. And then, for an hour, 40 minutes, 20 minutes. But as soon as it seems like you're about to get close, that's when she starts getting close. Sometimes you just got to fake it. Just fake it. But make sure you're actually on a spot that's taking her close to there before you start doing that. So that when that happens, you can kind of take it to the next level. But these are a lot of the reasons why somebody might fake an orgasm. You understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of reasons. Some of it's just from pressure from a man. But what you have to understand about it is this: dominant masculine energy, the desire to please, setting goals feels like pressure when somebody's masculine submissive. When somebody's feminine and submissive, they see your vision, they see your goals, they want to experience that, they want to embark on that journey. When somebody already feels like having sex is giving something to you, they may not feel like you're somebody who's worthy of that level of validation, or it's going to feel like more pressure on them than what they feel like it's worth. It may feel like just that loss of giving up control, like that fear of giving up control is something that can be scary. So they may fight that pleasure, even if they get close to it. And there's a lot of guys who have experienced women who they dealt with on that particular level. So I think this is some information that can help. But sometimes guys fake orgasms. Like, let's say a dude's overstimulated and he can't come, and this girl is starting to get, she's starting to get upset with him, starting to feel insecure. So he might fake it just so that he can get it over with. Sometimes a dude will do it because the coochie stank. Real shit. Sometimes a dude will do it because it's loose. Sometimes a dude will do it because he just want to see what it's like to do it. People fake it for a variety of reasons. But you do have to think about that fake it till you make it thing, right? Because fake it till you make it is, I think a good example of fake it till you make it, not just like Instagram. Another example of that works pretty well is like, think about Tyler, the Creator. Tyler, the Creator lied to his mom and said that he was going to community college while he was working on his album Bastard, right? Now, Bastard blew up, right? But what are the chances of Bastard blowing up? Or what are the chances of that record or his goal outside of what he said he was doing, working out, while he told his mom he was off at community college, while he told his mom he was off at school? You got to think about that. The chances of that working out that way is not very likely. Now, sometimes faking it, sometimes a woman can turn herself on through moaning. Sometimes her own moans, faking her own orgasms can turn her on. Sometimes it's something that can help, right? But I'm talking about pure vaginal orgasm penetration. I'm not even talking about clitoral assisted orgasms. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about pure making those walls shake. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of reasons it can be. But what I do suggest for guys to do is, if you're going to start with sex, then make sure that you're not trying to present yourself as the full package in a way that encourages a woman to want to fake orgasms to get more out of you. Also, make sure that you're dealing with her on a purely sexual level long enough, right? That if she isn't satisfied with that, that she's not going to want to continue to deal with you, right? Real shit. I'm just giving you some game right now. You do it like that, then if the dick is good, then she's going to be even more invested in you. If you set her expectations, you're masculine, you're dominant about how you do things, she's going to be even more invested in you. Don't acquiesce. Don't try to be in a relationship to the behest of her feeling entitled to it. Sometimes a woman will want to be in a relationship because she's having sex with you without orgasms. I know that sounds backwards, right? I know it sounds backwards, but sometimes it's what it is. Sometimes a woman feels like, well, I'm giving you my body because I want to be in a relationship. That's masculine submissive, right? So when she's in that particular point of view, she may be like, well, damn, I'm giving you my body because I want a relationship. I'm not having orgasms. So maybe the way I can get a relationship out of giving you my body is to make you think that we're actually sexually compatible, right? And then maybe she can convince herself that it's a good decision to make, because she just got socially programmed and just believes you just don't know what you're talking about. It's not something that can really happen, or you just can't handle the truth, right? You just can't handle the truth about what really satisfies her. So women got to understand that when they make these type of choices, they put themselves in situations to where they're probably going to cheat if they've ever had them before, or eventually they're going to feel like sex is a chore. They're going to get resentful, and those things may not work out too well. So I say that regardless of what that woman's mindset on it, to a particular extent, and if she has a particular mindset on it, that try to deal with a woman in a way that encourages her to be honest with you, right? If you're dealing with her on a purely sexual level, right, she come over a couple times, sometimes you might be dealing with a woman to where she never had a vaginal orgasm from penetration, so it's not something that comes natural to her, and you got to make sure that you have those conversations with her. You make sure that you're getting feedback. You make sure that you're looking for spots. Make sure that you know how your dick is set up. Make sure you know how her vagina is set up. You take your time. You learn her body. And I know that sounds like some really cliche shit to say, learn a woman's body. But I say, just hone it down to know what kind of dick you got. Know your size. Know your girth. Know your angles. Right. Know if you got a curve, know if you got a bigger head, know what yours is built for, and just try to make sure that you're angling it inside of a woman to hit the spots. Put some responsibility on her, right? Tell her, walk her through the different spots that she has, and the different spots you can hit with your dick. And when you're doing that, tell her, keep adjusting your body until I'm hitting right on that spot. Right? And then make sure you get in a comfortable enough position to be able to hit that consistently, right? And one thing that also helps is just making sure you got enough discipline, make sure you got enough stamina, and there's no shame in slowing down sometimes, but sometimes you got to understand that, you got to get a woman as aroused as possible first. The mental aspect plays a role. Sometimes a dude doesn't stay on the spot long enough, and the mental aspect is so important. But the mental aspect that you're trying to get a woman to is not necessarily feeling comfortable in the grand view of her feeling like you're not going to hurt her. You want her to feel comfortable in giving control over to you. So you want to get her into that lustful, intoxicated mindset. Not drugs, not drinking, but that liminal space of lust. You want to get her lusty, but you want to get her out of her dominant sexual ego, which often comes with being masculine submissive. You have to adopt a dominant sexual ego to be masculine submissive without getting something directly out of it, right? That's how it is. So let's say a woman's masculine submissive with a man, and she's like, well, he's not taking me nowhere, he's not buying nothing from me, so the pleasure I'm going to get out of having sex with him is that he's going to make me feel beautiful and desirable and sexy by him having an orgasm. So you kind of got to break her out of that mindset, and sometimes making it a little bit of a challenge is something that can help with that. But sometimes you got to have a real conversation with a woman, right? Sometimes a woman will come over a couple times, 2-3 times, you fucking with her, and it's like, hey, you trying to, like, if you're not coming, why are you coming? Like, I don't trust that. Now, I've had to tell a woman that before. Now, that same woman I had that conversation with, it didn't matter what her relationship status was. It didn't matter what was going on, to a certain extent, because she's still a woman who had a certain level of character. But after she started coming from the dick, she damn near didn't care about the head anymore. Before then, it was she really liked the head, right? But after she started coming from the dick, she didn't even really care about the head no more, which was interesting to me. And a lot of the times that's been what my experience has been. That's really been what a lot of my experience has been. I mean, if a woman gets to a point where she doesn't feel as desired, when a woman's cup gets low, she desires more validation. And oftentimes, eating a woman's pussy, sucking her toes, eating her ass, all that kind of stuff, kissing, a lot of stuff can be like emotional validation or just making a woman feel desirable. But a woman can get to the point where she just needs that dick. She needs inside of her. And she can get to an even higher level to where she needs to suck it. And one thing to understand about vaginal orgasms, it's not the end-all be-all, right? But what I will say is it is a strong foundation and a platform of a way that makes you sexually compatible with a woman in a way that can't just be duplicated by any person walking. Why? Because if it's a dick that's on your body that does it, then not only can she get the pleasure, of getting penetrated by it, just like you can with a dildo, but she also gets to feel it jump. She gets to feel that heat. She gets to feel the head grow, shrink. She gets to feel it get soft inside of her or something like that. Like after you come, she gets to get the validation of knowing that she's giving pleasure to what's pleasuring her. And that dynamic is really what makes, to me, coitus the sex that's kind of at the pinnacle, right, of what should be the gold standard. Is the vaginal orgasms. And if it's not the gold standard, then why do only 1 in 3 to 1 in 10 women get to experience them on a regular basis? You would think that if a rare amount of women get to experience something, that it probably means something, right? I think a lot of it has to do with the masculine energy that women adopt in society these days, the dominant mindsets that women adopt in society these days that kind of make it difficult. But I think that was also something that was pervasive back in the traditional marriage and the traditional dating days. So I'm not saying it's just some modern thing. You know, that's why I really preach sexual polarity, but I don't preach it from a perspective of saying go back to traditionalism. No, I don't say that, because a lot of traditionalism was built on prostitution. Like if a man's trading his resources or protection or provision or emotional validation or social validation to have sex with a woman, then he might get bored and not enjoy having sex with her if he don't feel like she's having pleasure. Man, get out of your feelings, right? You want her to have those orgasms because she needs to have them. You don't want her to have them just for your ego, right? So part of that is you need to really be able to go through those steps, learn her body, learn your dick, learn the angles you need to hit, learn the spots to hit, and just have some real honest conversations and feedback. Once you start showing a woman that you're getting upset or frustrated or offended at her telling you certain things about her sexual experiences, that's when a woman's typically going to shut down about how honest she is with you about her sexuality. And once that happens, it kind of just creates a snowball effect that just leads up into the point of faking orgasms. And another thing about that is just like you guys who judge women by their body counts. If a woman can tell that you're sexually judgmental, once she starts lying about one thing with her sexual experiences, it's just a matter of time. So unless you're just naturally giving her a certain level of pleasure, she's probably going to have to make you feel like you can, so that you don't feel bad about it. But in my experience, I've dealt with women in a variety of ways before they were able to have those experiences with me. Like, there are some women who they did it on the first time, right? Cool. There's some women who it took 2-3 times. There's a couple women it took 2-3 times. There's some women, I know there's this one woman in particular, it took like 8 months, right? Now, I wasn't actively trying to do it the whole time, because my thing is this, we was just fuck buddies. We wasn't even friends with benefits. So we wouldn't talk on the phone, none of that. We wouldn't hang out, none of that shit. We would just fuck. And, I was just the dick that she would go to. I'm guessing she never had a vaginal orgasm at all before. So just within the first few times we had sex with each other, she would have those moments to where I'm like, damn, you good? And I thought we was going to stop fucking with each other because she looked like she was hurt. But then she told me she felt like she was going to squirt. So we would just deal with each other for a while, and eventually found out how to, hit those spots, how to get that right for her, just positions that work for her. Like, I think just one night she was riding me. Then after that night when she was riding me, I started just figuring out her body. And after I figured out her body, I could hit those spots from different positions, different angles. So after that happened, it kind of just set something off, and she was just coming multiple times, like every time we was fucking with each other. But that took like 8 months. But we didn't fuck with each other, but maybe 3 months after that, because she started getting possessive. Like before she started having orgasms and losing that control, she wasn't really stunting me like that. But after she started having those orgasms from penetration, that's where she started being like, damn. She started trying to get possessive. She started trying to get, started feeling some type of way. And then she started to kind of catch attitudes sometimes and be passive aggressive about me dealing with other women, which she knew I was the whole time we knew each other. So that's another thing to think about. Like, if a woman has never experienced a vaginal orgasm from penetration and she experiences with you, and she also could see herself liking you, it's that mix of sex and emotions for her that puts her in a position where she feels unsafe because she feels like she's losing control. So if she views herself as more dominant, or she views herself as more masculine, without putting those terms on it, it can put her into a mindset, putting her into a mind frame to where when she starts feeling like she's losing control, she might start acting up, right? Especially if you're not giving it to her on a consistent basis. I've also had women I dealt with to where one woman, that shit took 8 years. That was a long ass time. I think I told that story earlier on. Another one, I don't know how to say it. Not everybody has, but I do think that some women be lying and faking about not having orgasms. I do think that happens too, just so a dude's head don't get boosted up too much. I also think that's possible, but I know everybody hasn't, and I didn't give a fuck with some of them. It just is, it was what it was. If I ain't fucking with you long enough to like build up rapport, then like that's on you. I'm not going to give you the A-game dick because I got something to prove. I'm not. I ain't doing that. I learned my lesson about that shit the hard way. What else is going on? Oh yeah, there's one woman that took it like 2-3 times, and I started giving her the Ospot orgasms. Another thing to think about it is this: when a woman really gets to that orgasmic place, sometimes she gets to the place where you can break her in. And in my experience with breaking a woman in, it's like the second hymen, it's like the second cherry. So that second cherry kind of works like, let's say you hitting it, you start, pressing up on the cervix, and then she bleeds on you. And after she bleeds on you, and when she's not on her period, after that point, she no longer has an issue with size. So that's something that happens in my experience. And typically, after a woman starts having that experience, that's when she really gets multiple orgasmic. I was dealing with this one woman, and she bled on me the first time we had sex. It wasn't too long after that, I gave her like 21 orgasms one night, because I had to break the record. I'm egotistical with the shit. And then there's another woman where she never had one before in her life from penetration. She had a few from head, but not many. So I was dealing with her one night, and not one night, it was different times, but just the longer we dealt with each other, the more I'd give her in a single setting. So went from giving her one to having to really work for that one, to giving her like 2, maybe 3. But then after a while, you go through those processes, you go through that steps. The woman gets more feminine, submissive with you sexually. She gets more sexually submissive with you. Then the woman gets to the point where that 1, that 2, that 3, it starts to blend together. Then the woman starts having multiples. And once it starts getting into the multiples, then it starts going in waves. And typically after that point, that's where a woman starts getting it. Now for me, I typically start with the A-spot. But after she gets into those multiples, that's when she kind of starts getting into being even more open to like squirting orgasms, or just those waves of multiple orgasms. And sometimes that can cause a woman to cry, to have like a mental breakdown in the middle of sex, to just start going crazy, right? Going crazy with it. And that's a very vulnerable position for a woman to be in. It's a very vulnerable position for a woman to be in. What else is there? So one woman is like, started off like, 1, 2, at different times during the session. Then it'll turn into like 3. But after it hit 3, then it started becoming like multiple. So then she could just ride me, have like 4 of them back to back, or like 2 of them back to back, or ride me like on a consistent basis. Then it would turn into like giving her like 8 during a session, maybe 8, and just like 6 of them from penetration, like 2 from head or something like that. And as you get into these, there's more and more levels. Like female sexuality is like a Pandora's box. Once that shit gets open, it's hard to put it back. The Pandora's box of female sexuality. So if a woman doesn't hone, right? She doesn't hone and concentrate her sexual energy into a man, like a single man she's dealing with. When she starts opening up to those experiences, it can really open her up to being overstimulated, to where she will get drained emotionally, and with her sexual energy, her cup will get low. And then when her cup gets low, then she's going to be in a place where she's going to desire a beta male. And when she gets in a place where she desires a beta male because she feels emotionally drained, then she's going to get to the place where she's going to deal with a dude who has little dick energy. And then a lot of times those guys might have a little dick. And then when that happens, she may make the guy wait for it, or she may not. But then dude may be real emotional, trying to trade emotion for sex, and then she'll try it. And then after a while, she may realize, damn, we're not sexually compatible. Then boom, here she go coming back to Brodie. Now I've had this experience with multiple women, so I'm not talking about anybody specific. This is a trend I've noticed. Like, something you might notice when you're a masculine dominant man, you're giving a woman these kind of experiences that oftentimes she's either going to have to go celibate or she's going to have to deal with a beta male after she finishes dealing with you. Because if she doesn't have enough security or she doesn't have enough in her cup to pour in you enough to get to the point where she's met your standards to where you can pour back into her in a way where she can respect it and desire you and integrate, then she's going to get drained fucking with you. And if she gets drained fucking with you, then she's going to need to either deal with a woman, deal with a beta male, or go be celibate for religious reasons to kind of come back into a knowledge of herself, to kind of refill her cup before she can get back out there. But if she goes to a beta male or a woman to fill her cup up before she gets back out there, then it can put her into a situation where she's not going to be having that same level of experience a lot of the time, especially if you had some good head too, especially if you did some other things and it wasn't just dick, especially if you had the dominance in your personality, taking control, being demanding in the way that she enjoyed, that turned her on, that aroused her, then it's just not going to feel the same. It's not, no matter how nice the guy is, no matter how good he is to her, no matter how much money he's trying to spend on her, no matter how much they wear the same outfits, no matter how much he compliments her, no matter how much he writes her love stories and poems and all this extra shit, it's just going to feel like he a bitch at the end of the day. And then once she gets to a high enough level of security to where her sexual energy gets turned back on, then if she's not sexually attracted to that guy enough, then she's just going to lose interest in him, and then she's going to want to start fucking around, or she's going to start disrespecting him and neglecting him and mistreating him so that she can, find an out so she can go get her some real dick. And that's just something that occurs. So you just got to understand that aspect of it. Sometimes a woman may fake orgasm so she can avoid that experience, or sometimes she's on the other side of that, to where maybe she was with a dude who was giving her those experiences in the past, and after she had those experiences in the past, she didn't want to make her new man feel insecure about what she felt he couldn't do, and not being feminine enough with him for her to be able to really try to find a way to have those experiences. So it may be difficult for her to be honest until it comes out at the worst moment to make him feel bad. Maybe they got in an argument, maybe he said something he's not satisfied with, and she's like, oh, here's my chance. And then when that shit pops up, boom, he's emotional, he's offended. So she's like, well, fuck it, I guess I'll just start faking it. Or she'll be in a situation where it's like, all right, cool, now I'm gonna tell him I'm not satisfied. That's not the time to tell a nigga that. You gotta figure that shit out quick and have that conversation and reach that point before you get too invested. Because the last thing you wanna do is be in a long-term relationship with a man who is egotistical and then tell him you're not sexually satisfied and expect him to feel the same way about you. You have to understand that men like a certain level of validation too. Don't let nobody fool you. If that man is giving you orgasms, that's part of the validation that you're giving him that makes it worth dealing with you. And if he realizes that he's not giving you that, especially if you lied to him about it, that is definitely a breach of trust. And that's just some real shit. So this is just Brodie on faked orgasms and vaginal orgasms from penetration in general. It's Brodie, I'm out.